Good day everyone. Let's continue our discussion on PHP, and with this I'll be talking about data types. The introduction of this one we already discussed in the previous lesson, but we will just reiterate this one here, and I'm sure that given our other discussions of other programming languages, including what you know about C++, these things are not very easy to, or not very difficult to understand. So we'll talk about the data types that are in PHP, and I have only indicated a few because these are the only data types I want to concentrate in. Um, Perhaps we will reserve the other data types and the other discussions in the future and more advanced discussions of PHP. But given the limited time that we have on the discussion of PHP, I will only be focusing on some of the data types of PHP, which is string, integer, float, and boolean. And then we will move on with our discussion of conditional statements. Now, this will be more like a review to you because these are also statements that are available in other programming languages. So we'll discuss about if statement, we'll discuss about if else, if and else. Now, so here probably the only difference is that it may not be exactly the same wordings or syntax as in the other programming languages, but given the logic that is already something that you are familiar with, no, understanding how to create or how to translate our logic into programming statements, this will be a lot easier for you. So we'll discuss another type of if else statement, which is if, else if, and else. And then we'll discuss a shorter version, which is using switch statement. And then we move on to loops, and that will be the while loop, the do while loop, and the for loop. So this is like more like an overview and more like familiarization of the syntax in PHP, because as I already mentioned, these are just the same across all other programming languages. The only difference is that probably how it is worded, how the syntax basically, the rules, no, it might differ across different programming languages, but I'm sure that the discussion that we will have for this video will be something that's going to be very easy for you to decipher. So let's start with the PHP data types. So as you can see here, there are a lot of data types available in PHP. You have string, integer, you have your float, okay, or floating point numbers, also called double in other programming languages as well. And then we move on to Boolean, array, object, null, and resource. So as you can see, probably at this point in your programming level, you do not have a very extensive discussion of array, object, null, and resource yet as a data type. So we will only focus on the first four. So we'll only focus on string, integer, float, and Boolean. Alright, so let's start with string. So you already understand that string is a sequence of characters, and it can be enclosed in single or double quotes. So I have here an example of a PHP code. So it is embedded, just like my other previous examples, inside your HTML tags, and you have here a PHP code. So as you know already, the PHP code starts with a question mark followed by the PHP word, and then you have here two variables, school 1 and school 2, which has Silliman University. So Silliman University here are both strings. So in PHP, you can enclose them in double quotes or in single quotes, and the result will be the same. So you have here echo school 1, so that means you're displaying the value of school 1, which has a value of Silliman University. And then you have the BR code here. The BR tag here is simply going to move your cursor to the next line, so that as you can see here, you have two statements. So the first statement here, Silliman University, is this one that is enclosed in double quotes, followed by BR. So the cursor moves to the second line in preparation for the output of your next echo statement, which is also Silliman University, but this time, as you can see, it is enclosed in single quotes. So regardless of how you present your string values, it can be in enclosed in double quotes or single quotes. It is understood equally as a string in PHP. Right, so let's move on to the next one, which is integer. So in PHP, and as with any other programming language, you have a scope, okay, or a minimum and a maximum value. So in PHP, it's a non-decimal number, so meaning to say it has no decimal part, no decimal point. No, it's a whole number, and that is between negative 2,147,483, no, trillion di, negative 2,447,483,648, and also positive 2,147,483, 2,147,483,647. All right. Now, so also when you speak of integer, it must have at least one digit, no? Uh, and it must not have a decimal point. So as I already said, it's going to be a whole number. Now, it can also be positive or negative because the minimum and the maximum value could either be negative or positive. And it can be specified in any of these potential format. It can be presented in decimal, hexadecimal, octal, or binary notation. So as you can see here in the example, you have one variable num with an initial value of 89,382. You don't need to put a comma on it. And then here, you're simply using var dump. Just to show, var dump here is a function that will return the data type of a particular variable, and as well as the current value of that variable. So as you can see here, the output is going to be int because it is determined to be an integer in PHP, and it has a value 89,382. So of course, it already goes to show or to follow that if you're going to use echo instead of var dump, then it will just display the value of that variable rather than include the data type. Right? So I want you to, at this point, try to use a variable, give it an initial value of an integer value, and then try to display it using echo. Now the next one is float. So float is a number with a decimal point or a number in exponential form. So if integer is a whole number, it is float that is the one that has a decimal point. No? So as you can see here, you have num given an initial value of 324.842, and if you're going to use var dump, it will return a float because it has a decimal point. It's not a whole number anymore, so it will not return integer. So as you can see, again, var dump is a function that will return the data type as well as the value of that variable that you put inside your open and close parentheses. And again, I want you to try and use echo, see the difference if you're going to display a float value. So basically here, we're just using var dump in order to validate that it is indeed that particular variable that we are assuming. Okay, next would be Boolean. And with Boolean, there's only two possible states, either true or false. So more often, we use the variable that has a Boolean data type in conditions, like in if statements, switch statements, also in loops, which we will also discuss later. Alright, so let's move on to conditional statements. So as I mentioned already earlier, when we discuss about conditional statements, this is just like, I'm not really going to give you a lot of examples because I'm sure you have been given a lot of examples in your other subject that discusses about C++. So I will only be discussing I will only be discussing about the syntax and how you need to present it in PHP, basically how it works, and I'll just give you an example. And I just want you to, for each of those slides, I just want you to pause the video and then try it also. Maybe if you have examples in your CCS1, then maybe you could also try, and rather CCS2, you might want to convert it into PHP and see how it should be written in PHP, okay, from C++. Alright, so you already know this. Now, when you say if statements, it executes some code if one condition is true. So, and then you have your if else, you have your if else statement, and then you have your switch statement. So I will be discussing each one of this in the next slides. So let's start with the if statement. You already know this, and as you can see, it's basically the same syntax. In other programming languages, this curly brace could be start and end, or begin and end. But in this case here, you have your if, the word if, and then you have your condition, which is enclosed in curly braces, and then in parentheses, sorry. So you have your if statement followed by the condition enclosed in parentheses, and then you have the curly brace start and the end of the statements that will be performed if this condition is true. So if the condition here after your if statement is false, it will skip all of these statements inside your curly braces. Alright, so as you can see here, you have uh, hour, which is your variable, and then you give it an initial value of date. No, so date and then age. So as you know, on the right side of this slide here, I have included another code that is basically how you use the date function in PHP. So if you only say echo, okay, and try to forget this one at this point first, I'll just give you an example. So when you say echo date L, so what happens here is that given L, you will only be displaying the day of the week. So just like here, for example, you have date H. Here, you're only going to extract from the date format the hour portion, no, and this one is the day of the week portion. Now if you don't actually specify anything, or like if you want to extract the longer version of your date, you can say L. So L here actually is the day of the week, like Thursday. And then here you have J. J is the day of the month. So in this case here, 17. S here in capital letter is just going to display TH, for example, in 17th. Or maybe FT if like numbers like 1. So it's going to display first. So S there will display ST. So it's basically dependent on the value of J here, which is the day of the month. And then followed by a text. Now text off. So you in PHP you need to precede it with a slash so that PHP will understand that you just simply want to display off, and this is not a format that you want to give to your function date. And then F here is the month, so that's November. And then Y here in capital letter is also going to return the years, in this case 2022. And then you have H is the hour, so you have 07. I is the minutes, so you have 08. And then S, small letter S, is the seconds. And then followed by capital A that will display AM or PM depending on whether it is morning or afternoon. So try to display this or run this on your computers right now, and expect that it will display the date today, which is December 4, and then the time. Now, what time is it? It's basically like 9:55 a.m. Alright, so now given this example here, you already understood that if you say hour is equal to date H, it means that you want to extract the hour portion of that date. So, for example, if right now it's 9:56 a.m., so this date will return the date function here with when you indicate only H is only going to return 9 a.m. So that's in the morning of 9 a.m. And then that is going to be the value of hour. So hour here is going to be a string, no? So it will be a string because the return value of date is a string. So it's going to return 9. And so in this case here, if you say if and then the condition, okay, followed by the condition. So the condition here is that if the value of hour of your variable hour is less than 12. So for example, since it's right now it's 9 a.m., so it's less than 12. So that makes this statement true. Now as you can see, you have 12 here enclosed in double quotes because we know that the value that is returned by your date function here is going to be in string. So you're comparing string to string. Okay, so if the value of hour is less than 12, and and so that will return true because it's 9 a.m. at the moment. So it will display, so that means this condition is going to be true. And so since it is true, it will display this statement that is inside your open and curly brace. So it will display first half of the day. Now assuming that it is 2 p.m. today, so of course if it's 2 p.m., that date function here with an h parameter will return 14. So 14 is not less than 12. Alright, so since it is false, okay, 14 less than 12 is false, it will not perform and it will not display first half of the day. Alright, so at this point, I want you to run this program on your computer and show me the result. Now, next one is you will have your if statement, no? If else statement. So in an if else statement, so in the previous example, we only have one condition. And that means that if the condition here is false, it will not display first half of the day. It will skip that and nothing else happens. All right? Unless of course if you have statements following this if that has no condition. All right? So in this case here, in the next example that we have, there is an else part. So that means that if the condition here is true, then it will perform this statement and it will skip the else part. Okay? Now, if the condition is false, it will skip this statement here on top and go to the else part and perform the statement or the statements on that part, on that within that curly braces. So as you can see here, this is a this one here is a reminder of how it works. All right, so and then this one is the code that we have revised to fit the example of if else. No, so we have here if hour is less than or equal to 12. So for example, for values starting from 1 to 12, so this is less than or equal. So if it returns 12, it will still be true. If it's 11, it will still be true. If it is 2 p.m., that's 14, it will be false. So what happens here is that if we're going to run this in the morning and the value that will be stored in your function hour is less than 12, right? So it will display first half of the day and then it will end. Okay, so now if the value of hour is 14 because it's like 2 p.m. in the afternoon, it will skip this part here because it's false and it will go to the else part and perform the statement or the statements on that part of your code. All right, so without any condition here, if this is true, it will perform this and skip the else part. If this is false, it will perform this. If this is false, it will skip this first part and perform the second part. All right, and the else part. Okay, so I want you to try that out. I want you to pause this video again and try the code and see how it works. So maybe you might want to run that in the morning or in the afternoon, see that the result is going to be different. Now let's move on to the third one, which is the if, else if, and else. Now as what I have mentioned earlier, in the if else part, the else part does not have any condition. So immediately if the condition here is false, it will go to the else part and perform that regardless of the value of your variable. Now in this case here, we have conditions on the else if part. So for example, if say if your age is 1 to 10, and then if it's 11 to 20, something else will happen. It's 21 to 30, something else will happen. So this is the kind of statement that you could use on that one. So you have more than just one condition, no, or more than just two conditions. Now, so in this case here, it will check the condition. If it is true, it will perform this first statement and skip all the other statements. Now, if this is false, it will go to the else if part and check if this condition is true. If it is true, then it will perform that and skip the else part. If it is false, it will try to see, since it will go to the else part, sorry. If the first condition is false, the second condition is also false, and it will go to the else part here. So now, note that in this if, else if condition, you could add as many else if conditions here as you want. Okay, as long as the last one is else, the final one is else, because that means to say that if none of the conditions here are met, then it will go to the else part and perform that. Okay, so as you can see here, the example is it will extract the hour part, okay, of the current date or the system date of your computer. So if it's 9 a.m. today, it will be uh, 9 is less than 10 is going to be true. So it will display maayong buntag. And it will skip the else if part and the else part. Okay, so only maayong buntag is the output. Now, assuming that it is like 11 a.m. or 12 or 1 or 2 or maybe 17 is like 5 p.m. in the afternoon. Now, it will display maayong adlaw. So, any value that is from 10 to 19. Sorry, that's 10 to 19 because as you can see, unlike the previous example here, this one is less than or equal to. So that means to say if the value of hour is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 or 12, no, because this is less than or less than 12, then this one will be performed. So it makes the condition true. Now in this case here, it's only less than. So that means to say if the value of hour is less than 10, so for example 0 or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, then that will make this condition true. Now if the value of hour or HR is going to be 10, that will make this condition false. So it will go to the else if part and check if this condition here is also true or false. Alright, so in this case, if the value is like, for example, if it's 10 a.m. in the morning, this first condition will be false. It will go to the else if part. And of course, if you say 10, 10 is less than 20, so that will make this second condition true. And it will display maayong adlaw. Now, however, remember that this is less than 20. So that means to say if the value is 20 and that's like 8 p.m. or perhaps 12 or 11, no? In the evening, and that will make it 21, 22, 23 hours. So this one will be false. And it will go to the else part and display gabi na. Alright, so again, the first condition here is only going to filter the value of HR that is within 0 to 9. This one is going to be for values 10 to 19. So that's 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. If the value of HR is going to be 21, that's 9 p.m. until 12 midnight, which is equivalent to 24, then it will go to the else part. No, there's no condition anymore. So if this is false, this is also false. We will do else part and display gabi na. Alright? So that's if, else if, else. Now the next one is your switch statement. So this one is like a conversion of your if statement. Okay, and I know that you are familiar with the switch statement already. So just like your other programming languages, you have switch followed by the variable that you are evaluating, in this case favnum, and you have the possible values of favnum. So for example, if you use here keys 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that means that you're only evaluating if the value of favnum is 1, 2, 3, or 5. Now in this case here, it's 1, 3, and 8. Alright, so if the value of favnum is 1, okay, and we have here the initial value of favnum is 1, it will display your favorite number is 1. Now assuming that we change this 1 to 2, so it will go to the switch part, it will evaluate the value of favnum, it will compare the value of favnum to 1. Now it's not equal, no? Again, remember that we are assuming that the value of favnum is 5. Alright, so it's not going to be 1, it's not equivalent to 1, it's not equivalent to 3, it's not equivalent to 8. So there's no match. So since there is no match and you have a default part in your switch statement, now remember that this is optional. If you remove the default part, it's still going to work. But of course, if there is no match, there's going to be no output. Alright, so in this case here, because favnum is assumed to be 5 and there is no 5 here, so this is false, this is false, this is false, it will go to the default part and it will display your favorite color is not 1, 3, or 8. So because we are assuming that the value of favnum is 5. Now, so if the value of favnum is 8, so it's not 1, so it's going to skip that echo part here. It's not equivalent to 3. It is now equivalent to 8, so it found a match. So it will display your favorite number is 8, and then it encounters the break statement. So the break statement is just a statement just like your other programming languages that will force the flow to get out of that switch statement. Alright, so if you change this one to 8, the output will be your favorite number is 8. If you change the favnum value to 12, it will display your favorite color is not 1, 3, or 8. Okay, so try to remember how this switch statement is created in PHP, because I will be asking you questions similar to this, and even converting from if statement to switch and switch to if in the later part of our evaluation. Now let's move on to another example of switch. So this one I already explained earlier. So here in this example, the value of favnum is not enclosed in single quotes or double quotes, because here we are assuming that the variable type, data type of favnum is integer. So there's no need to enclose 1, 3, and 8 in double quotes. Now, if it is if the variable that you're evaluating is string, so of course we are, like for example, the initial value here is red, so we are assuming that since fav color is a string, the potential value or the values that you're trying to look for from that particular variable, or from that particular variable is also string, so the potential values are enclosed in double quotes. So here, if it's blue, yellow, or black, then it will display the corresponding statement. Now, since we're assuming that the value of fav color is red, so this one will be false, this one will also be false, this one will be false. It will go to the default statement, which is it will display your favorite color is neither blue, yellow, or black. So assuming that the favorite color value here is going to be black, so it will be, this case blue is going to be false. It will move on to the next case statement. It will also be not equivalent to yellow. Now, and then on the third evaluation, you have black. So assuming that fav color is black, it means it has found a match, and it will display on your screen your favorite color is black. So that's how easy it is to create a switch statement. Now then, let's move on to the while statement. So this is now on loops. So in a while statement, how it works is that it has the while word, okay, or the word while, followed by the condition. And what happens is that it will check first if the condition is true, and then if it is true, it will perform the statement or the statements inside the curly braces, and then go back to the condition. So while it is true, it will keep on looping and performing the statement or the statements inside your while statement. So once it becomes false, it will go out of that while statement and continue, move on to the next statements. So as you can see here, you have a variable x with an initial value of 5. Now one thing that you need to remember when creating loops is that it should not become an infinite loop. Infinite meaning regardless of how much you can or perform the statements inside your while statement, it is, or there is no way that it will somehow become false, at a given point. So in this case here, you have to ensure that you're making changes to the value of your variable so that it will come to an end, in one way or another. So in this case here, you have x is equal to 5, so the value of x is 5, and then you check is the value of x, which is 5, greater than or equal to 1. So of course initially that's going to be true, so it will display the number is 5, because on the first iteration the value of your variable x is 5, so the number is 5, and then you subtract 1 from this value. So from 5 it becomes 4, so 4 is still greater than or equal to 1, so it will display the number is 4. Now remember that for each of these statement, it will move on to the next line and not in one line because of the PR tag here. Alright, so again, so you have the output is the number is 4, and then you subtract it by 1, it becomes 3. So it will check again, is 3 greater than or equal to 3, so it is equal to 1, greater than or equal to 1, so it's true. So it will display the number is 3, and then subtract 1 from it, it becomes 2. Now is 2 greater than or equal to 1, it's still true. So it will display the number is 2. And then subtract 1 again, so it becomes 1. So again you check, is 1 greater than or equal to 1? So 1 is greater than or equal to 1, that's true. So it will display the number is 1. And then subtract 1 from that value again, it becomes 0. Now, then you check the condition, is 0 greater than or equal to 1? So that means that statement is going to be false. 0 is not greater than or equal to 1, so it's false. So since it is false, then the while statement stops. And if you have statements following your closing curly brace there, then that will be performed. Alright, so but basically that's how the while statement works. It checks this one, the condition first, and then perform the statement, or the statements go back to the condition again, see it if it's still true. If it's false from the very beginning, so assuming that, for example, the value here is 0. So since if the value of x is 0, 0 is greater than or equal to 1 is false. So since it is false, it will not display anything, so you have no output. So in other words, in a while statement, because you check the condition first, there is a possibility that you won't get to display or perform the statement or the statements inside the loop at all. Alright, now this one. So here, you're also making changes to the value of x. So initially it is 10, and you're checking, is 10 less than or equal to 50? That's true. So since it is true, you perform the statement or the statements inside. It will display the number, which is the number is 10, exactly as how it is written inside your echo statement. Now remember that if it doesn't have the words the number is and only this $x, then it will only display 10. No? So in the exam, I will be asking or giving you a statement, and then I will ask for the output. If it's not how it is written in your code, it's not the result of your output. And so that is very crucial, understanding what happens inside your statements or inside your code. So it will display first the number is 10, and then you increase the value of that variable by 10. Okay, so in this kind of operators, plus equals, you're increasing the value of x by 10 and then storing the result to x itself, such that when you loop again, the value of x is no longer be 10 as its initial value, but it will now be the revised value based on this condition. So it's now 20. So is 20 less than or equal to 50? That's true. So it will display the number is 20, and then increase that value again by 10, so it becomes 30. So is 30 less than or equal to 50? Yes, it will display the number is 30. And then again, you have BR, so the cursor moves on to the next line. Then you increase the value of 10 by value of 30 by 10, it becomes 40. So that 40 less than or equal to 50 is still true. It will again display the number is 40. Increase it by 10, it becomes 50. Is 50 less than or equal to 50? So that is still true. So you're going to display it one more time. So display the number is 50. Increase the value of x by 10, so it becomes 60. Is 60 less than or equal to 50? That makes it false. So that's the end of your while statement. Now, so imagine if you are checking a condition here, and within your while statement, there is no way you're not changing the value of x, so that at some point of your code, it becomes false. Then if there's no such thing as that, now say for example, if you're not changing the value of x here by or increasing it by 10, the value of x will be exactly the same as it was from the very beginning. It will just be 10 all the time. So there's going to be an infinite loop. No? So I'm sure that you have met that phrase since you're learning about other programming languages. You should not make it an infinite loop, otherwise there's no way for it to become false, and it's going to be an unending output. No? So it's never going to be ending. Now let's move on to do while. So in a while statement, okay, so here in a while statement, you first check the condition and then perform. So there's really a possibility that you don't get to perform the statement or the statements inside your open and close braces, not even once. No, so but in a dual statement, you perform first and then you check. So in this case here, the value of x is 2. You display that value. So the number is 2 displayed on your screen. You encounter a BR code, so the cursor moves to the next line. And then you increase that value by 2. Okay, and then you check if it's still less than or equal to 10. So that's the first time you ever check the condition. So since it's still true, 4 is less than or equal to 10, so it will display the number is 4. Increase that value by 2, it becomes 6. 6 is less than or equal to 10, so it's still true. You perform it one more time, it will display the number is 6. Increase by 2, it becomes 8. Is 8 less than or equal to 10? That's true. So again, you move and loop from the very beginning of your curly brace. And it will display the number is 10. And then you increase it by 2, it becomes 12. Is 12 less than or equal to 10? It's false. So since it already became false, then it will go out of that dual statement. And the output is only going to be displaying the numbers from 2 to 10. Now this one, okay, is an example of a code that is initially already false. So for example here, you have x is equal to 10. So you're giving x a value of 10. Now looking at the condition, you know that 10 is not less than or equal to 8. So it's false. So since this is a dual statement, that's the beauty, or it has pros and cons. No? But in this case here, what happens is that even if this condition is false, because you only check that at the end of your statement or at the end of the first iteration, it will still get to perform the statement or the statements inside your open and curly brace. So in that case, since the value of x is 10, it will display the number is 10, and then it will increase it by 1. It becomes 11. Now 11 is less than or equal to 10. That is true or false? No, that's actually false. So since it is false, it will not go back to the beginning of your dual statement anymore. It will just be performed once and then that's it. Now, so try to convert this into a while statement, in which case the condition x is less than or equal to 8 is going to be at the top, so it will check first before performing. So in that case, if you convert this into a while statement, you will not have any output at all. So there's no such output as the number is 10, because you are checking it beforehand before performing any statement. Alright, so try to convert this code into a dual statement and then try to see that there's really no output if you do this. So again, in a dual statement, you first perform and then you check the condition. In a while statement, you check the condition first and then you perform. Now, your for statement is also something that is familiar to you, and just like other programming languages, you have 3 parameters in your for statement. The first one is where you initialize the counter. So in this case here, you're giving x a value of 1. That's the initial value of x. And then the second parameter that is separated by semicolon is your condition. So this is where you put the condition that is suited for the variable that you initialize here. So in this case here, you're checking if the value of x is still less than or equal to 5. And then the third parameter is where you increment your counter. So this is where you put plus plus or minus minus or plus equals, times equals, minus equals, modulus equals, etc. No, so and again, there should be a way where at some point if your program, this is going to be performed and it will become false. So here, since the initial value of x is 1 and you check the condition 1 is less than or equal to 5, so it is true. So after determining that this is true, you perform the statement or the statements. And then after performing the statement or the statements, that's when you go to the increment counter part. So what happens is that the value of x is 1. This condition is true, so it will display the number is 1. And then the next one will be to increase that value. And this is plus plus, so it will become 2. and 2 is less than or equal to 5, so that means we will perform this one again. So it will display the number is 2, and then it will increment the value of x by 1, it becomes 3. 3 is still less than or equal to 5, so again, one more time, display the number is 3, and then increase it by 1, it becomes 4. 4 is still less than or equal to 5, so yes, we're still going to perform that one more time. The number is 4, is displayed on your screen, and then you increase the value of x by 1, it becomes 5. Now, but since you say less than or equal to 5, so it's still true, so it will display the number is 5, and then it will increment the value of x by 1, it becomes 6. 6 is not less than or equal to 5, so it makes that statement false. So since it is false, then that's the only output that you will get for this example. Alright, so I think understanding for loop is not difficult given that you already have a background in learning other programming languages. Okay, now this one is different, and this is just to reiterate um, the loop, the for loop. Now this one is, instead of increasing it by 1, so just like your plus plus in this example, you have plus equals 20. So initially the value is 20, it's less than 100, so you display the number is 20. You increase the value of x by 20, so it makes it 40. 40 is less than or equal to 100, so that's true. You display the number is 40. Increase it by 20 again, so it becomes 60. 60 is less than or equal to 100. It displays the number is 60. Increase it by 2 again, it becomes 80. 80 is less than or equal to 100, so it's still true. It displays the number is 80. And then increase again the value of x by 1, it becomes 100. 100 is less than or equal to 100. So of course, if you remove the equal sign here, it will now be false at this point, but since it is less than or equal to, then it will still perform the statement one more time, so you have the output is 100. And then increase it by 20, it becomes 120. This will make it false. So that's it. Now that's your output for this for statement. So yeah, that's it, folks. We have discussed the data types, particularly string, integer, float, and boolean. We discussed the format or the syntax of your if else, if else, switch statement, the while loop, the do while loop, and the for loop. So good luck, everyone, and please do the instructions that I gave you and submit the deliverables. Thank you.